Changli shall scorch your enemies to death, and today I'm here to tell you how to build her best. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. So, what echoes does our wonderful Wayfinder need in order to make her truly shine? 5-piece Molten Rift is the obvious choice. 10% extra fusion damage percent is very appreciated. Not to mention how after using her skill, you get 30% more. And Changli's skill is the main meat of her kit in terms of damage share. We don't have a ton of echoes in this game yet, so we're left with this being the only available set for her. Granted, it is a very good one. 2-piece mix and match sets include 2-piece fusion percent, attack percent, and ER percent. Main stats are simple. For a 4-3-3-1-1 cost, go for 4 crit, 3 fusion percent, 1 attack percent, 1 attack percent. You can also substitute both fusion percents for attack percent as a substitute pick. As for 4-4-1-1-1 cost, 4 crit, 1 attack percent, 1 attack percent, 1 attack percent. Her primary echo will be Inferno Rider for that juicy fusion damage percent. Also, Inferno Rider does the most personal damage out of any of her primary echo option on Changli. It's better to use Inferno Rider because Changli is already built on fusion damage percent, and Inferno Rider's damage scales off of that. It's also the only 4 cost on the fusion set, so you're forced to use it anyways. The illusion of free will. But if you're running 2-piece fusion percent and 2-piece attack percent, Mech Abomination will work for you, giving you attack percent and a reasonable dish of damage. Otherwise, just stick with Inferno Rider. Stat priority is simple. Go for this. Energy-wise, you'll want 120% in Changli's core teams when running with Encore, because Encore generates so much energy for Changli, but for every other team, you'll want 140% energy to consistently ultimate every rotation on Changli. You really have no reason to run anything other than 5-piece Molten Rift, but it's up to you. This Phoenix needs a blade to slice your enemies apart. Let's discuss. Blazing Brilliance will be your best bet. This is Changli's tailor-made sword option, providing her with everything she could ever want. Plenty of crit damage and some upfront attack percent. She can get up to 56% skill damage bonus percent when you max out the weapon stacks, which is not too difficult to do. Obviously her best slot. The Emerald of Genesis, which you can pick up from the permanently available 5-star selector, is also a great pick. Some neat crit rate percent and some energy regen percent to help out with her ER requirements. And she gains 6% attack after using her skill, and since this can be proc 2 times, that's a tidy 12% attack buff available to you. Commando of Conviction will provide you with some easy attack percent on your intro skill, which lasts for a decent amount of time, and the weapon's main stat also provides you with plenty of attack percent. Good 4-star Changli choice. Lunar Cutter can give you 12% attack on swap in at R1 and 24% at R5, which slowly decreases over time until you defeat an enemy to refresh all your stacks again. Changli's rotations are long, so this isn't ideal, but if you're killing plenty of mobs very fast, then it's not a bad option. The attack percent main stat is also appreciated. Lumen Gloss is mostly an option because there's not many weapons in this game yet. Basic and heavy damage aren't central to Changli's kit, but at least they're there. Even Changli's Forte skill, heavy attack, counts as skill damage. But you can also use this for its attack percent that seems to be a common trend here. Sword of Night is literally just a worse and cheaper Commando of Conviction. Easy to refine, use this if you have nothing else. Otherwise, Commando is just this, but better. Craftable Sword 18 has a useless passive for Changli, but if you really need an attack percent stick and none of the above options are free, then this free-to-play option will suffice. I should remind you that in Wuthering Waves, one weapon can be used for all 3 of your endgame teams, so Emerald of Genesis is free. Use that without any guilt of weapon sharing. Otherwise, Changli's signature is absolutely her best in slot, and is also the best for all of her sword users currently. Changli is very flexible and has some great options teams-wise. I'll go over all her 2nd slot options first, and then her 3rd slot options last. Encore will be Changli's best partner in crime, generating Changli a ton of energy and taking great advantage of Changli's outro skill buff, not to mention how neat it is to run consistent swap cancels in this team, and Encore herself just does a lot of damage. Yin Lin will be your best in slot partner if you want to run a hypercarry-centric Changli. She doesn't require much field time and has high personal damage while also providing good AoE. Because Changli doesn't have a set period of field time, you can also run Havoc Rover mostly just because they are capable of doing some really big nukes to fill in downtimes, which is nifty. Though make sure your Rover is built with enough energy, since without doing their on-field rotation, you might not have enough energy on Havoc Rover. Otherwise, a pretty decent synergy that's worth noting. Jinshi doesn't have any particular synergy with Changli, but you can run them together if you so choose. only problem with this is that it nerfs your Jinchi since you have no coordinated attacks going on, which lowers how many skill stacks Jinchi can build up, which decreases her damage by a pretty significant amount. So yeah, you can run teacher and student together if you feel like it, but it's nothing recommended. Yang Yang doesn't provide much for Changli other than being able to battery for her with her outro skill, which is a nice touch. Mortefi is a good secondary option due to being able to hold sets like Moonlight Clouds and Impermanence Heron for buffing, while also being able to hold Static Mist and provide a 20% attack buff with his S6. Also, he does decent personal damage and can utilize Changli's outro skill buff. Sanhua is good for similar reasons to Mortefi, but is a little worse because of her lower personal damage, and she cannot take advantage of Changli's outro skill. Chixia has a short rotation which fits very well with Changli, and she takes full advantage of Changli's outro skill, making Changli the best partner for Chixia if you want to make Chixia specifically work. Now for third options. Verena will be good as always thanks to your attack percent buffing, which is very strong as we all know by this stage. Baiji provides some buffing as well, though Verena will be better because their attack buffing is stronger. Jianshin can provide grouping in lower Tower of Adversity floors, otherwise no particular synergy with Changli here. And Taochi can provide a massive 38% skill damage deepen on outro, but my problem is that Changli's Concerto rotation is a bit too long for my liking, and she doesn't do enough damage to justify being used. Her buff is also not compatible with Changli's swap cancels, so more of a last resort option. Then for Changli's abilities, how does she work? Her basic attack deals 4 strikes of fusion damage, and after the 4th, she enters the true sight state for 12 seconds. Her mid-air attack will use up stamina so she can do 4 strikes in the air, and the final one also gives her true sight. Her heavy attack will deal fusion damage. Her mid-air heavy attack will activate a little after holding her basic in mid-air, or doing a true sight attack, then she can do a plunging attack. Her dodge counter just deals a bit of fusion damage, nothing too special. Her resonant skill, which is much more interesting, will cause Changli to dash towards the enemy to enter True Sight, which lasts 12 seconds. Afterwards, she deals a plunging attack, which deals fusion damage. True Sight Capture has 2 charges, which can be used up to 2 times. She gains another charge every 12 seconds, and you can cast this in midair. Her basic attack has 2 different forms based on her skill. When in True Sight, if Changli uses a ground basic attack, she'll use True Sight Conquest. She dashes towards the enemy and will deal fusion damage, and this basic damage is considered as skill damage. After she does this, True Sight ends. However, True Sight Charge is activated if Changli jumps or uses a basic attack in mid-air, which will have Changli do the same thing as Conquest, dashing towards the enemy to deal fusion damage. It's just the scalings that are different. True Sight will also end after she does this. Then for her Resonance Liberation, Radiance of Fealty, which is a sick name by the way. It'll deal fusion damage to nearby targets, which will give her 4 stacks of Inflamement, which is related to your Forte circuit, which I'll get onto in a minute. She'll also enter Fiery Feather, and this can be cast in midair. Her Forte circuit, Flaming Sacrifice, will have Changli's heavy attack consume all 4 stacks of Inflamement from her burst to deal fusion damage, which is considered as skill damage. And while casting Flaming Sacrifice, which is the name of her special heavy attack from this Forte circuit, Changli takes 40% less damage. This is important because this animation takes a hot second, so it's some nice inbuilt defensiveness. Changli can have up to 4 stacks of Inflamement. She gets 1 stack for every True Sight Conquest or Charge hit, and she gains 4 for every ultimate she casts. Changli's intro skill will have her appear in mid-air, attacking the target, and then entering True Sight. And her outro skill provides the next character to swap in 20% fusion damage, and also 25% resonance liberation damage for 10 seconds, until the character is swapped out. Her inherent skill 1 will give Changli up to 20% fusion damage bonus for every stack of Inflamement she has after using one of her True Sight attacks, and her inherent skill 4 will give her 20% fusion damage bonus when she uses her special heavy attack or her burst. She'll also ignore 15% of enemy defense. As for talent priorities, simple. Her basics and intro skill are not important at all, so ignore them. Almost all of her damage counts as skill damage, so it's obviously the main meat of her kit. Level them up. Changli wants to buy some new Wei Chi boards, funder for sequences. S1, a neat damage increase to your skill and special heavy attack, also the 10% interruption resistance is very appreciated. S2 is a nice stat stick, nothing too shabby here, not much else to add here since it's so simple. S3 will make her burst become quite the nuke with the sequence. I would say it's pretty good. S4 is a team-wide attack buff, nothing too crazy but the stats are appreciated nonetheless. Pretty good in a dual carry team with Encore, especially since Encore benefits from this. An S5 will cause her special heavy attack to deal a truckload more damage. Pretty neat. And then S6, oh boy. This'll cause all of Changli's important abilities to ignore 40% of enemy defense, which is the most raw form of damage increase in the game. Very good S6. If you want to vertically invest into your Changli, go for her weapon first, then her sequences if you're interested, but otherwise she's very complete at S0 and none of her sequences are crazy enough to justify going for her on their own. I think Changli's kit is really solid and intuitive, and I'm very glad that Kuro Games was able to provide Changli a good chunk of love, even if most of their resources went into beefing up Jinshi to the max. She feels like a strong and efficient character to play, and I look forward to seeing how she ages into the future. I'd say she's fairly well balanced and is the first DPS of her kind, and after all, since this game is so new, pretty much every new character that gets added, which covers a role that was previously empty, will become the new best-in-slot character of that role, so I think that Changli will be relevant for quite a while, since Wuthering Waves will most likely focus on fleshing out their roster more, as opposed to immediate Changli power creep. You'll be pleased with her if you choose to pull her either way. Changli is a very powerful new DPS who appears like she'll have quite the flexible future ahead of her. I'd say she's about the third best DPS in the game as it stands currently, and while she may not be breaking the game in the same way that Jinshi is, she will most definitely provide you with solid performance and not disappoint. I myself adore this character, which is why I am motivated to cover her, and I hope I was able to spread the Changli love while also giving out some useful information while I'm at it. If you enjoyed this video, maybe consider joining my Discord, which will be down below in both the pinned comment and the description of this video. Also consider following my Twitter, which will be in both of those places, and my Ko-Fi will also be there too. Plus, I've also recently opened up channel memberships if you're interested in joining that as well, so you can directly support the channel and help me make more great content. Hopefully this video was able to tell you how to get Changli scorching her enemies into the afterlife. This has been Juice, signing out, and if I'm being honest, Changli gives me extreme ho-oh vibes.